Hello everyone and welcome! Today I've got the RC 125th scale 2013 Challenger SRT8 back on the bench. In the last video I got the model kit unboxed and assembled the chassis. I even designed and 3D printed some custom 5-spoke wheels, which I think turned out looking awesome and really look good with this body. In this video I'm continuing the build by mounting the body to the chassis as well as modifying the interior and engine bay so that they fit. To start though, I actually wanted to do one final thing on the chassis, and that's cut off some of the excess axle shaft that's sticking out. This is sort of a minor thing, but I think it makes the car look better overall to trim these sections off. It's easiest and best to do this before fully assembling the chassis, but this way works as well. Again, it's a minor thing, but I think it's definitely worth a little bit of extra effort. So I talked about this in the previous video, but as you may recall, I've already built one of these cars a while back, so it's made this build extra easy since I can use that car as a reference. I'm going to be making a shallow interior and engine bay just like I did with that previous Challenger. I started by gluing in the door panels and the firewall piece. Once the glue is dry, I cut out the bottom of the interior tub so that I can make a new floor higher up to easily clear all of the electronics below. I made the bottom edge as flat as possible. To create the new floor, I used a flat sheet of styrene plastic. I simply traced around the interior and then cut that piece out. After that, I glued the piece to the interior and then test fit the dash. With the floor much higher up, I need to modify the dash so that it fits. Basically, I just needed to remove some material from the center area where the radio and climate controls are, as well as the kick panels. With that little bit of trimming, it fits perfectly. These shallow interiors are a nice balance of having plenty of room for the electronics below, while also having some nice scale looks. The final items to add to the interior are the steering wheel and the seats. The steering wheel fits just fine, but the bottom of the seats need to be removed. Before I chopped the bottoms off, I glued the back piece into place. A rotary tool makes this process effortless, though it doesn't leave the smoothest edge. These are going to look great once painted and installed, but for now, it's time to switch gears and focus on the engine bay. Basically, I'm going to be doing the same thing in the engine bay that I did with the interior. I cut a little from a few spots to make each side flat, and then I glued in this piece of styrene. The engine, or at least whatever's left of it, will be glued to the styrene piece. Again, it's a nice balance of scale realism while also leaving plenty of room below. After some final trimming and sanding to clean up the bottom edge, I taped the interior piece to the body so I could start doing some test fits. Already the car is looking better with the interior in place, but I need to create some mounts that will hold the body on the chassis. I'll be using magnets to hold the body on, just like I did with the previous Challenger. I glued each post to the chassis and then glued one magnet onto the top of each post, and finally I glued one magnet onto the underside of the interior. The important thing is to make sure each post is the same height so that the body sits level. I did need to sand down a couple of magnets to fine-tune the height of these corners to get the body sitting level, but once that was complete, the body can now be easily mounted to the chassis. Already the car is looking pretty awesome, and all that's left to do now is to paint all of the parts and add the final details. But first I wanted to do some test driving. The car works great, with no wheel rub and no issues. It's also pretty quick with a 4,000 RPM motor installed. An all-around really fun car to drive. The more I've worked on this Challenger, the more I like how it looks. I'm really excited to see this car completed, and I hope you all are as well. Be sure to stay tuned for the final part of this series, where I'll be painting all of the parts and airbrushing some details onto the body. But that's going to be all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.